In the beginnings of the Mafia, it was simply a way of life. It was a way to protect one's family from the harsh reality of the world and the injustice of their government. The fast, glamorous lives that the mobsters live now are products of the television and media. Sicily's oppressive and violent government created the need for an underground justice system to exist. The history of Italy makes it clear why the Mafia has continued to exist for such a long time. First, the Romans took control of Italy in 241 BC during the First Punic War. The Romans set up a system in which small gangs had to be created to successfully exist in society. Next, the Roman Empire fell to the Arabs in 1826 AD, and with it the Arabs took control of Italy. The Arabs allowed the Italian people to practice their own religion, but they consequently changed many of the social norms in Italy. Instead of having a justice system to settle disputes and problems, they had small groups to avenge people who disobeyed the law. The Arabs also ingrained the idea that women stayed out of the business, and this is still true in the modern Mafia. The Normans were the next group of people to take control of Italy in 1000 AD. The Normans forced Italy to embrace the system of feudalism, which is basically a bunch of landowners that were loyal to the king. This began to establish the system of bosses and the people who were below them working towards a monetary goal. In 1300 AD, the Spanish took control over Italy from the Normans. The Spanish believed in censorship. This is very important because information from the English mainland never reached Italy, which caused a large creativity in the form of art. The Italian Renaissance was born in this time period. The Spanish rule was very cruel, and at any point, a Sicilian could be called out and executed. This made the Italians very scared of their rulers, and they needed a way to protect themselves. The Mafia fit the bill, and they grew large during this time, protecting people. In 1500, there were groups known as bandits, which are one of the groups that the true Mafia branched off from. These bandits were just people who were upset by the Spanish government that they were under. These bandits decided to revolt by using thievery and murder. This seemed like a very brutal way of life, but it was necessary under such an overpowering government. These bandits created the middle class in Italy, and with the middle class emerged the Mafia. The middle class did whatever they could to make more money, whether it was exploiting people or twisting the government system for personal gain. 1860 brought Garibaldi, who was an Italian commander who struggled to unify Italy. He kicked out the Spanish and declared himself dictator. The Mafia was unfazed because the men in the upper class of society already had ties in the Mafia. There was a great rise of violence and uncertainty during this period. Also during this time, Sicily was united with the mainland of Italy. This caused the government to have a very hard time because the Mafia had power in the government and on the streets. The government eventually accepted it because the Mafia is so strong and steady. The new government made the local Mafia bosses very powerful. They felt so powerful that they had a string of political assassinations so they can put their own people in charge. The people in the Mafia was more like a fungus to Italy because it was so deeply rooted into the culture, politics, and just everyday life. In the 1900s, the Mafia was very strong and widespread in Italy, which was in a deep economic depression, so many of the Italians were immigrating to America. Mussolini was also cracking down on the Mafia in Italy, so they had to create a different Mafia across the sea in America. They settled in large cities such as New York and Chicago, where crime would be committed on a large scale. From 1920 to 1970 in America, there were rivalries within the Mafia. While Al Capone went to jail in Alcatraz, Lucky Luciano emerged as the boss of all bosses with the help of Bugsy Siegel. Luciano allowed people who were not Italian to join his gangs, and this caused many other gangs to be furious at him. This caused gang wars between other organizations within New York in the 50s. And in 1957, Carlo Gambino emerged as the biggest Mafia boss ever. Once he passed away, his son took over this American Mafia family and is running it now. The Mafia is still very strong and prevalent in our society and the Italian society alike.